Welcome back, Sea Peeps. I'm Divesh Thakkar, and today we have a graph traversing problem. The name of the problem is a puzzle game. Okay, so we have to solve a puzzle. Now, let's look at the conditions. First of all, we will be given any random puzzle, and what we need to do is we need to make this puzzle until it reaches this particular stage. So, this is the resulting puzzle. But there is a condition. The condition is you can only swap two adjacent nodes if the sum of both the nodes is a prime number. Okay, that seems easy. Now, what is an adjacent node? Basically, an adjacent node is a node which shares a common edge. So this edge is called an edge, right? This is a vertex. So say for example, I have node 1. Now 4, 2, 8 and 9 are adjacent nodes to 1. So you can only swap these two nodes if they are adjacent plus the sum of both the nodes is a prime number. Alright, so let's dive into the problem and let's look at the problem. Okay, now let's look at the problem statement as to what we have in store. Okay, this is a beginner problem. Johnny has some difficulty memorizing the small prime numbers, so his computer science teacher has asked him to play with the following puzzle game frequently. The puzzle is a 3x3 board consisting of numbers from 1 to 9, and the objective of the puzzle is to swap the tiles until the following final stage is reached. So basically, he has a board of a puzzle, which is a 3x3 puzzle, and what he needs to do is he needs to solve the puzzle such that this following final state is reached. But hold on, there is something else as well. At each step, Johnny may swap two adjacent tiles if the sum is prime number. So if both the tiles numbers sum is a prime number, and two tiles are considered as adjacent if they have a common edge. So these are the two conditions which we need to keep in mind, and we need to help Johnny to find the shortest number of steps needed to reach the goal state. These are some inputs, about 50 test cases. Each test case consists of a 3x3 table describing the puzzle which Johnny would like to solve. So essentially this is the puzzle, this is the jumbled puzzle which we have as the input. The input data for successive test cases is separated by a blank line, okay. Now for each test case, we need to print a single line containing the shortest number of steps needed to solve the corresponding puzzle. And again, if there is no way to reach the final state, we need to print a -1. So this is an example which we have been given. We have two test cases here. These are the two puzzles which are given to us. For the first puzzle, this is the possible explanation which we have. And this explanation is pretty self-explanatory. And again, we have another puzzle, and this puzzle cannot. Hey guys, so after looking at the problem statement, now let us look at our approach. Okay, so most of you would think, alright, I have a jumbled puzzle which I would take as the input. What I need to do is, I need to find the number of steps required, of course, in the given conditions to convert that puzzle in this required puzzle, right? And that seems pretty normal, right? This is the straight path which we would follow. But no, we would follow something different. Okay, think about this. What if we have this puzzle, right? We know that this is the required puzzle. What if we generate all the possible jumbled puzzles, because there is a condition of sum to be prime and the adjacent nodes to be swapped. So yeah, keeping in mind that condition, can't we find all the possible jumbled puzzles and store it in a map such that the map corresponds, the key is your puzzle and the value, and now don't worry about that, we'll look into it when we code, but we have a map, the key is the puzzle, and the value is the number of steps, the smallest number of steps which are required in order to get the required, to jump from the required puzzle to this particular puzzle. Now why am I saying this? The reason is, the number of steps required to change the required puzzle to any jumbled puzzle is the same as the number of steps required to change from this particular puzzle to the required puzzle. That is what you need to remember. So basically, it doesn't matter if I am transforming this puzzle into the jumbled one or the jumbled into the required. The only thing that matters is I am using the smallest number of steps, right? So this is what we are going to do. And when we get our input, let it be any input, what we need to do is we need to scan through our map to find that particular jumbled puzzle, and voila, we will get the corresponding key, corresponding value, and that corresponding value is the smallest distance which is required to solve these puzzles. So this will be our approach for solving this problem. Okay, so after looking at the approach as to how to solve this problem, let us look at the algorithm which we would be using. So for this graph traversing problem, there are two types of algorithms. Basically, if you want to search a particular graph, you can do either breadth first search or depth first search, which is BFS or DFS. Okay, so this is searching algorithm. So effectively, what is the major thing you need to do is to traverse each and every node of the graph. So you may be given any graph. Now I have taken a tree over here. A tree is also a graph after all. So basically, if you start from here, what you need to do is you need to visit each and every node at least once, right? And that is the objective. Now, okay, let us understand BFS and DFS with the help of a story. Alright, so there were two friends basically, Rohan and Suresh, and both these friends were playing in the garden. Now, Rohan was content, but Suresh was a bit greedy. And when they were playing in the garden, one day they found a treasure map, right? So the treasure map had the start point and the end point of the treasure. So here, this thing is the map. And okay, so there were two friends, right? Rohan and Suresh. Now, both of them started fighting as to who would take the treasure. And in the end, it was decided that whoever reaches first takes the treasure. Okay, so they went on and they went to the start position. So this is the start position. Now, Rohan and Suresh both took different paths to reach the treasure. Now, this is the treasure, this is the start position, and this is the map. Now, both of them do not know where the treasure is. So they are going to traverse as if all the roads have equal probability, right? Okay, so Rohan and Suresh approach differently for traversing this particular map. What Rohan did is, Rohan started from 1 as usual and he explored all the nodes which 1 is connected to. So in our case, the adjacent nodes are ones which we can explore. In this case, this is a tree. So Rohan started with 1. Okay, so Rohan started with 1 and now he went to 1 and then he explored completely this particular node which he visited. So he visited 1, he explored 1. Now 1 is connected to 2 and 4, right? So he visited 2 and 4. Now he went to the next node since 1 is completely visited, right? Completely explored. Now he went to the second node, node 2. This is the node. Now he started exploring node 2. 2 is connected to 1 and 3, but 1 is already explored. So the next node is 3. Okay, so now 2 is completely explored. Now he moves to 4. Now node 4 is connected to 1 and 5. We have already seen 1, so then comes 5. Node 4 is explored, then he moves to node 3. 3 is connected to 6. He visits 6. Then he goes on to explore node 5. Now node 5 is connected to 4 and 7, but 4 is already there. So then comes 7. Now comes node 6, and node 6 is not connected to any node. All the nodes which it is connected are explored. So node 6 is done. Then comes node 7. Now 7 is connected to 8 and 9. So you can take them in any order. I will take 9 first and then 8. It is absolutely fine. And yeah, he gets the treasure over here, right? So finally he found the treasure. So this is an approach which Rohan followed. Okay, now look at another approach which Suresh followed. Now as I told you, Suresh was a bit greedy. So what Suresh did is, instead of rippling through all the nodes just like Rohan did, kind of a breadth first search layer by layer, what Suresh did is, Suresh tried his luck. He chose one path and he cruised over all the nodes to find the end node, to find such a node which cannot be explored further. And if he does not find the treasure, he moves back. Alright, so let's look at this in maths. Now, Suresh again started with 1 and he explored 1, right? Now, Suresh saw 2 and 4 and he chose 1, so he chose to explore 4. Now, he has 5, so he goes to 5. Now, after 5, he is exploring 7. Now, remember, he is not exploring 2. He knows 2 is there, but he has not explored it now. He would only go in one particular direction until there is no other node to explore. Okay, so he has hit 5, then he moves to 7. Okay, now again, 7 has 2 nodes, right? So say for example, Suresh chose node 8. 8. Now there is a problem because in this particular path, the last node is 8 and he's still not found his target, right? Now what he would do is he would move one step behind and he would move to node 7. And after exploring node 8, there is nothing. So he moves one step back and he explores node 7. Now again, node 7 has one thing left, right? Node 9. So he explores node 9 and voila, he gets the treasure. So this is the treasure out there he found. So both of them find the treasure, right? But the way they are approaching to the treasure is different. Okay. So this is the basic intuition behind both these algorithms. Now again, these algorithms, this problem is not related to our problem, but this is just a basic intuition as to what is BFS and DFS. Okay, so now I have a question for you. Which data structure should we use for both these algorithms? Now let me tell you, both these algorithms use different data structures, but I have a question for you. Think for 2 minutes, pause the video as to ponder as to what data structure can be used for both these approaches. Okay, so now the solution is for BFS, what we are doing is we are rippling through the complete nodes, right? So this is a queue. If you you may have got a big hint from this thing. This is first in, first out as the queue. So this thing is your queue, right? BFS using queue, whereas you may have guessed DFS or the depth first search will use a stack. Now why stack and why queue? Let us look at an example. 1 and 2 are two nodes, right? This is 1 and this is 2. And I'm starting with 1. Now Rohan uses DFS. This is 1, this is 2. Rohan is the queue, so Rohan puts 1 first and he explores 1 and he finds 2. Now again we have other nodes, but let's just take 2 for now because I just have 2 hands. So 1 and 2, right? This is BFS. First, Rohan will explore 1 completely and after he has explored 1, he explores 2. So this is first in, first out, right? But in case of Suresh, when he uses a DFS, what he does is he puts in 1, then he puts in 2. And then since the data structure is a stack, he first explores 2 and then he explores 1. So that is first in, last out. Okay, so now how to find a particular element from the puzzle? So basically we have, say for example, this puzzle. Now we would store this puzzle in an integer, right? So we would take a primitive integer and that would store our puzzle. So we're going to store it in this way, 732415689. Now what if I want to find a particular element from this puzzle? What should we do? So for that, what I have done is, see, basically it is simple, right? What I need to do is, say for example, I want this particular element. I would just divide it with the place value, the tens power. So for this particular element, I need to divide it with 0, 1, 2, 3, 10 raised to 5. And when you do so, all these things go and what you're left with is 7324. And since you do a single slash divide, it gives you an integer, right? So all these decimal places are gone. Then what you need to do is you need to find the remainder when you divide it with 10. Okay, so now let's look at it practically. I have this puzzle, right? What I will do is, okay, for this puzzle, what we can do is we can just divide it with b of x. And this will give me that particular x element. What I mean over here is, I have already defined an b int array, and this is an array, and this array shows these particular elements. Now you can just run a basic for loop and you can get this array. What if I want a particular element of this puzzle for any logic purpose? So what I would do is, I would just divide it by b of x and I would just take a %10 for this. Alright, so far we have only looked at the theory behind the BFS, right? We have looked at what is BFS, but how to actually apply this BFS into our problem. So now we would look at the practical approach as to how to apply this BFS to our problem, right? So okay, I have written a couple of for loops over here. Don't worry about that. We would look at it later. But here I have this code snippet out there. And what I have is, I have this particular example. I have an example. You can just use any puzzle for your example. Here, if you see, okay, I have this code. Let's analyze this code for clarity, right? Okay. So let's start. My code control follows like this. Both I and j values will be 0. And when I start over here, this will essentially give me the indices of the elements such that those two elements can be swapped. Now again, I am repeating, it will give me the indices of elements which can be swapped, which means that the elements are adjacent to each other. The elements share a common edge, right? So this is the practical application of BFS in our problem which we would be using. So let's analyze this problem first. Okay. Now this is our puzzle. This is just an example puzzle. Okay, I and j are 0. If you start, 3 into 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0. And 3 into 1 is 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 3s are 3. This becomes 3. So this is our first indices. So 0, 1, 2, 3. 0 and 3. Yes, they can be swapped. So here we have 7 and 4 which can be swapped. Moving on, 3 into 0 is 0 plus 0 is again 0. And 3 into 0 plus 0 plus 1 which is 1. And yeah, I'm feeling good because this thing gives me 7 and 3, 0 and 1. So yeah, 7 and 3. Now note here, I am not saying that this code will give me the only adjacent tiles which are prime, which the sum of which is prime. No, it will only give me the BFS tiles which can be swapped. Now we need to determine if the sum is prime. If it is not prime, we would not swap, right? But this gives us the BFS practical approach. Moving forward, again, now this completes. My j turns out to be 1. And again, 3 into 0 plus 1 gives me 1. 3 into 1 plus 1 gives me 4. And 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So 3 and 1 over here. Again, for here, this condition is satisfied. And we'll see why this, if j less than 2 and if I less than 2 is written. Let's move forward. So 1 and 4. Over here, 3 zeros are 0 plus 1 gives me 1. 3 zeros are 0 plus 1 gives me 2. And again, that is correct because 0, 1, 2, 3 and 2 are adjacent elements. Moving forward, now j becomes 2. This, if this condition is satisfied, 3 into 0 plus 2 is 2. 3 into 1 plus 2 is 5. And again, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 2 and 5 can be swapped. But now j less than 2 is not satisfied. Okay, let us assume that this is not, if there is no if, and let us go on to do with j as 2, right? So j value is 2. 3 zeros are 0. 0 plus 2 is again 2. Okay, that looks good. 3 zeros are 0 plus 2 plus 1 is 3. Okay, I got an index, but let's just verify. 0, 1, 2, 3. Oops! 2 and 4 cannot be swapped. Right? So this is the basic reason why we need to take j less than 2. Basically, there is no out of bounds stuff, but effectively, if you take j as 2 and similarly, if you take I as 2, these elements would not be adjacent. So there is no need to swap them, right? So this is not okay. This won't be there, and we would continue, right? So this will go on. Now our j will become 0 again. I will turn out to be 1, and this list will go on. Alright, so here I have fast forwarded the video and I have jotted down all the indices which the adjacent nodes can be swapped off. So I have renamed this thing, and I have not put up the exact values as to which elements would be swapped, and these all are the indices of the elements which would be swapped. Now I have changed it to the required one because it's easy to understand, right? These effectively are those elements which can be swapped. Okay, I got this. We understood for this code snippet of the practical application of BFS, we were able to apply and analyze as to what elements are happening. But again, you would ask, I am watching this video as to get the intuition. How did you write this code, right? What popped up in your mind, and how did you come to this conclusion for this code? Don't worry, we're going to look at that as well in this section. So basically, how did this code come? You need to understand two things. First thing is, why did we write these couple of ifs? The condition is simple. What if I have this particular element? Okay, say for example I have 6. Now, 6 has nothing on the right? Just as 2 can be swapped with 3, 6 cannot be swapped with anything on the right. 6 can only be swapped with the 9 number which is below it, right? Similarly, what if for number Okay, no, not 1, but number 7. 7 has something to be swapped with the right, but it does not have anything down. And we've already looked at that. So that is the basic thing why. Okay, so if you see over here 5. 5 is an element. This is not 5, this is the fourth index. This is the fifth index. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the exact number, right? 6 can be swapped with the 8th index, but it cannot be swapped with another index of the right. Similarly, if you look at the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th index, 6 can only be swapped with the 7th index. There is nothing below. So if you traverse this thing, you will understand that why these if loops are written. Second thing, how did I write this is, okay, this comprises of 4 parts, what I have underlined. Now, these 4 parts are 4 different things. This thing out there is all the elements, all the nodes of the graph, and this thing out there is the node below that element which can be swapped. So effectively for each node there are 2 possibilities. This for any x node, it can be swapped with the node adjacent to it and the node below to it, right? Both of these are adjacent, sharing the same edge. So effectively this code out there, this pair out there gives you a pair of the node above and below, and this logic gives you the pair which has the nodes left and right. So this this is why I have drawn these 2 ovals, but this is what these 2 codes do. If you have a close look, both of these are the same, because this gives me the exact same node which I am working upon, but this thing gives me the node below it, 0, 3 in this case, and this code gives me the node besides it. But basically this thing is it tells me all the nodes which can be swapped, right? So yes, this is the basic intuition, this is the practical application which we would be dealing, and this would help us to solve the problem and apply BFS in the answer. Some great explanation. Finally, let's start to code and let's try to hit the AC. So I've just included a map and a queue. First of all, let me just declare some global variables. So I'll just say a map of integers. I'll just say a list, and this will be essentially our map which will hold the puzzle in the first integer. This is the puzzle and this is the distance. Like our reversed approach. Again, I will just say a queue of integers. Simply name it as q. Again, I will okay. Then let me just take an integer array of b, and this is the array of the 10 power. So we can use to divide elements to find an element which we have discussed earlier, or we can use to swap these elements as well. So this essentially is okay. Now I won't declare it now. I mean just initializing it, and again I will just create another last array. This is prime, and this will help me out to check whether an element is prime or not. So basically let's start with 0. Now 0 is not prime, 1 is not prime, 2 is prime, oops, yeah, 2 is prime, 3 is not prime, yeah, 3 is prime, 4 is not prime, 5 is not prime, 5 is prime, 6 is not prime, 7 is prime, 8 is not prime, 9 is not prime, 10 is not prime, 11 is prime, 12 is not prime, 13 is prime, 14 is not prime, 15 is not prime, 16 is not prime, and 17 is prime. Now, why did I just go up till 17? The reason is the maximum numbers which we would be adding is 9 and 8, right? Because our array, our puzzle would have from 1 to 9. So that is why we would go only up till 17. So yeah, these are some of my global variables. Now what I will do is I'll just create new method. I'll just say preprocess method. I'll just create a new method, process, and this essentially will be called before our main method. So remember the reversed approach which we were going to use, right? So this is our reversed approach. We would take our required puzzle and we would find all possible jumbled combinations of the puzzles. Therefore, we would have all the jumbled combinations of puzzles beforehand, even before taking the scene for our input. So that is the best part. So here, what I will do is, first of all, we would just I will just formulate this B array. So what I'll do is I'll just take the last element to be 1, and then I'll just say for int I equals to 7, the last element. So we'll go reverse. I greater than equals to 0, I minus minus, and here I'll just say b of I is b of I plus 1 in 10. Right, so all the subsequent elements will be multiplied by 10. Yeah. And now I'll just take my puzzle, my required puzzle, and I'll just name it 4, 5, 6, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. So this is my required puzzle. And again, now what we would do is, yeah, we would put the distance of this. So in my list, I'll pass in the puzzle, and I'll see the distance of that is 0. Okay, and now I will push the puzzle in my queue. So I'll just say queue dot push, and I want to pass in the puzzle. Yeah, I'll just pass in my puzzle. And yeah, this is pretty much it. Okay, so now after pushing the puzzle inside my queue, now what we will do is we will run the while loop. So this is the main while loop which we would be running. Essentially, it checks whether my queue is empty or not, and it runs until my queue is empty. So this is the while loop, which is the queue data structure which we have. So yeah, let's check queue dot empty. While queue is empty, oops. What I will do is I'll just say int current equals to queue dot front, and this essentially will give me the reference to the first element of the queue, and then I'll just say previous distance equals to queue dot uh, okay, I have my list over here. So list of current. Yeah. Alright, so in previous distance is list of current. This gives me the previous distance, and now I will apply the BFS practical logic. So here we would apply those for loops which we saw earlier, and this essentially will traverse all the nodes of my puzzle in the BFS fashion, and it will tell me the indices. Those indices can be swapped, right? But again, you remember I had told you this BFS will only give us the indices which can be swapped, that is the adjacent indices, but it won't tell me if my indices can be swapped, that is the sum of both the values is a prime number or not, right? So we need to write the code for that, and we're going to create a separate method for that, right? So okay, let's continue with this first. So I'll just say you know this code. I'll just say int I equal to 0, I less than 3, I plus plus. Again, I'll just say j equals to 0, j less than 3, yeah, j plus plus. And here I'll just say if I less than 2, and now we would write the compute function. Now this compute function is yet to be written, we're going to write it now. But essentially, can you compute, and now I need to pass in the pair of numbers, right? So the first element was again 3 into I, that's j. The second element was 3 into I plus 1, that's j. Yeah, and these are the two elements, and I will also pass in my current puzzle which I have. So if you see over here, the puzzle integer is only for my required puzzle, right? But my current puzzle which is in my queue is my queue dot front, right? So essentially this is my puzzle. I'm going to pass in my puzzle, and I'm also going to pass in the previous distance. So I will say yeah, so I'll just say distance, previous distance, yeah. And again, we'll just check for the second condition for j less than 2, and again I need to compute, so just a second. Yeah, we'll just copy this function, and you guys know what the change is, right? We're going to just say 3 into I plus 1 plus j. And this is pretty much it. Yeah, so this is for our pre-process function. Essentially, it applies the BFS logic. It does the BFS for us, and it's going to compute it, and it's going to subsequently add it in our queue. Right, so all the pre-processing will be done by it. Only thing which this function is going to do is it's going to check for the prime part. So okay, let us create that as well now. So as we know that, so I'll just say void compute, and here I'll just pass in x into y. I'll just say in current, my current is the puzzle, the current puzzle which we have, and again I'll just pass in the distance. Now you may be wondering what this x and y are. Many of you may have cracked it. Basically, it is the node index which we were passing, but these are the special node indices which can be swapped, right? Because they are adjacent to each other. And my BFS has sorted out that adjacency part. What I need to do is just check for the prime. So, okay, I just have the indices. Now you guys know that from the previous videos that we need to get the element right from the index. So I'll just say first element equals to, and here I'll just say current, that is my puzzle, again divided by x. You remember this thing, right? And just do a percent n, and this is it for the first element. For the second element is again the same process, and just say current upon b of y and 10. So this gives me the first and the second element. Now what I need to do is I need to check if the first and the second element's sum is prime. So I'll just say if it is not prime, I'll just pass it first, second, and now you get it why I'm using an array with zeros and ones, right? This is my array to check it. So yeah, if it is not prime, then you don't need to do anything. So I'll just say return nothing, but else, yes, now the number is prime, right? So we need to swap them. So swap the two numbers. Yeah. So I need to swap these two numbers. Now you may be thinking, how would we do that? Essentially, I have only told you how to fetch a number, but I have not told you how to swap. But basically, I have told you all the data structures which we would be using. So int b array of 9, this is what we will help us again. So basically, that is kind of a homework for you. Just the way we divided to get the element, we would multiply to swap the element. So what I would do is, I'll just say current plus equals to, and here, yeah, I'll just say second. Let's see, can you please give it to me? Second minus first, second minus first into b of x plus now first minus second into b of 5. And this essentially will swap the two numbers. Now you can just try it on your own. If you just check, if you just analyze, you would see that this effectively swaps the two number. And again, this depends upon the tens power, right, which we are using. So don't worry about this. This is the basic stuff which we already know. So I'm swapping the two numbers, and now we just need to check if this particular puzzle is in our list. So I'll just say that if list.find, can you please find this puzzle? And if it is in the end, this means that my puzzle is not existing in our list, right? So then I need to add it. So I'll just say list of current. Can you please add the distance? That's 1. Now you may be thinking, why this statement? Okay, remember we have used the term previous distance. So basically this means that the puzzle which we have yet formulated, we are swapping one more time. So basically when you are swapping one more time, the distance increases by 1, and that is the reason we say distance plus 1. Okay, yeah, so this is distance plus 1, and now let us push it in our queue, right? Because you remember in BFS we used to push all the elements in the node as to explore them. So I'll just say queue.push, and here we will pass the current element, and this is it. Yes, it is. Let me just check once. Yes, it is. So basically, we have used our pre-process function. The pre-process function moves off to the compute function. This compute function just adds off to the queue. I think we are all set to start off with the main method. We have not yet started with that. So let me just say T, that is my test cases. I'll just say puzzle, and I will just say X as some kind of a variable when we're taking the input, right? And okay, now what I will do is, okay, let me just pre-process first. Pre-process the function. And now let's just do this. So at this stage, if you see, we guys are in total control, because when you call this preprocess function, you already have a list, and that list is filled with all the jumble possibilities along with the distances with the required puzzle. So you are all set. Now you would just say to the computer, hey computer, or I mean, hey CodeChef, for your T, I'll just take in the T first so that I don't miss out on that. So I'll just say C in T. Now, for all test cases, I am all ready for it, right? So I'll just say, first of all, let me just assign puzzle to be 0. Then, can you please add it to my puzzle? I need to add the puzzle. I need to take the jumbled puzzle which I would get as the input, right? So I'll just say int I equals to 0. And again, this will be 9 elements. 0, I less than 9, plus. And now let me just take this down. So now, okay, simple, right? Now we are all set with the pre-process function. So now I will just take in the X, and I'll just say add it in the puzzle. And again, this, I'm not using a plus equal to, mind it over here. Basically what I will do is, I'll say puzzle into 10 plus X. So I have my puzzle 10 plus X. Now what this does is simple. Whatever number I have, I need to put the next number at the next place value, and the next place value comes with a power of 10, right? So I multiply it with 10. Say for example, I have 5 as the first number and 6 as the second. I have 5 in my puzzle because the puzzle initially contains 0. So 0 into 10 is 0, plus 5 is 5. Then I have 5 into 10, which is 50, plus 6, which is 56, and 5 and 6. That is effectively put. So this is an example, but this effectively puts in the puzzle values. And now what we would do is we would just traverse to our puzzle, right? So I'll just say if list dot find in my puzzle is list dot end. Oops, this means that my puzzle is not in my the all list of possible jumbles which can come back to the required puzzle. So if this puzzle, the given input puzzle, is not in that list, this means that oops, this puzzle cannot be transformed into the required puzzle by any number of steps. So I'll just say C out. I'm using basic C in C out. There should not be any DLE problem for me. Okay, I'll just say C out. Yeah, we're going to say -1. And else, now it is found, right? So simply you just give the distance. So I just say list. I need to pass in the puzzle, and this will give me the distance for it. So I'll say del. And yeah, this is pretty much it. I guess this is what should be required. Okay. Yeah, this looks good. Okay, let's just try to submit it. All right, finally we have done the code and we are ready to submit. Oopsie, I have a compile time error. Let's just check for the error. All right, so basically I have an error over here. I put a comma instead of a semicolon. So let's just submit that again. Whew. All right, so finally we are going to submit it. I hope everything goes fine. Let's keep our fingers crossed. And boom, we've done it. We got the correct answer. Wow, that is great. That's awesome. All right, so we have done it finally after loads of explanation and a great coding example. We finally cracked it with our reverse approach towards the problem, a puzzle. So that was it from my side, guys. Keep on practicing more exciting problems, keep moving forward, and I will see you in the next video.